Go.
Streaming from South Africa to the world. This is the Stonks Go Moon podcast. What just happened? We break it down so you don't have to.
Welcome everyone to the Stonks Go Moon podcast. My guest today, Tom Slocum, founder of the SD Lab. Welcome to the pod.
What's going on, everybody? Thanks for having me, Rocco. I'm excited to be here.
This is epic because what I want to delve into today is cold calling, right? And I've never spoken to you. So this is sort of a deja vu meta experience for me because this is a cold call, right? Because even if I'm not trying to sell you and you're not trying to sell me, we'll see, maybe you do. I'm still, picking up on your cadence, and we'll get to cadence later, and like who you are and the sound of your voice and your energy and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, I'm excited. We've been on LinkedIn together. We've been in a few places, and it's just exciting to come full circle and jam with you. And it is 100% cold, right? This is our first time.
Yeah, this is cold. This is So let's dive in, right? I see cold calling as a rite of passage to sales. If you haven't cold called, then you can't say that you've been in sales ever. That's just how I see it. I still remember, not fondly, my first cold call about 20 years ago when I was 18 or 19 years old, and I bombed, right? I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, I was trying to sell this person something, and it put me off for like a week or two, right? So I think let's get into the meat of the matter. And for everyone should know what cold calling is, right? Cold calling is just what's your definition of cold calling?
Cold calling is really, you are calling into a territory, a list of accounts or individuals that fit, a business need or a business problem that you solve for. And these people really don't know about you. They are cold. They may have a small understanding of your business, but they really don't know who you are. And so you are picking up a phone to reach out to them and have a organic conversation as best as possible and convert them from going from zero knowing of your product to, hey, let's book a meeting and look at solving some of the problems you have using the solution we offer. But it's cold. These people don't know you by name. It's not like calling your grandmother or your friend. It's just, I picked up the phone randomly. I got this name on a list. They work at this company. This company has this problem. I'm going to give them a call and see if they can book some time with us and maybe learn about our solution.
And they might not even know your company.
Yep.
Because I started at I've been at a startup, and it's so nerve-wracking because usually you get like, who? It's that like, who, what?
I do it at two scenarios to that on both sides of the coin. I am now a founder of the SD Lab. And most of my calls now start off where, I say my name, I'm with Tom with the SD Lab, and 2 seconds in, they're like, the what? The SD? I don't know what that is, and I'm like, this is, a cold call, and I kind of have to, get them to understand where we're coming from. Where in my past life, when I worked at Yelp or GoDaddy, I called people, you say Yelp, it triggered people, right? People got triggered by the name Yelp and would hang up on me just by saying I was from Yelp, right? Yeah. Or be like, I've been waiting for you to call me. I want to talk about these reviews and and you just sit for 20 minutes while somebody just kind of, goes off on you for a little bit. So, but they recognize the name. So I prefer, and it is a great place to be if the company does have a reputable brand, because you save yourself 5-10 minutes with a cold call, not having to explain who you are, right? When I called from Yelp, I could get right into the nitty gritty of the conversation.
Yeah.
Where now with the SD Lab, I have to spend the first 2 minutes of the call just kind of telling you what I do, right? Or what it is. And then you kind of like assess, that's something I could use right now. Or, hey, Tom, I appreciate that, but like, I'm not looking for that right now. Yeah. And you got to spend that time where when they know your name, it's like, oh yeah, I know Yelp. What's up? What can I do for you? Talk to you guys. Crazy.
Tell me, is cold calling, in your opinion, still sort of a valid form of, outreach. Is with everything, all tech going on, people sort of look down upon it. But I get a ton of cold calls a day, and we'll delve into those later. But I'm keen to hear your opinion on the matter.
I advocate for it. That's where my brand is. If you follow me on LinkedIn, or if you followed me for the time that I've been out there, right? I love cold calling. I actually call it warm calling. I try to encourage, reps and account executives to do a little bit of research. I teach them a process to scale the volume of their calls, but still having that research to where you're making a call a little warmer by engaging with them on their post, or sending them a few emails, or just having some credibility to show them you know them a little bit. But I think it is a very effective channel for 3 simple reasons. One, speed to lead. It's quicker, right? How many times have you wasted time sending 10 emails to a prospect when all you had to do is pick up the phone and find out they don't work there anymore, or it wasn't even relevant, and you got that solved within a 3-minute call, versus the last 2 weeks you having to constantly write these great emails, spend all this time, and get nowhere, right?
I think email is obsolete. I'm sorry, if you want to reach me, email is obsolete. Telegram, WhatsApp, instant messaging, instant communication. Email is like the dinosaur technology.
It's a value touch point for me now. It's still, it'll still generate meetings. It'll still be a good sales channel, but it is the most noisiest space for any industry in the last 3 years. That is how everyone has communicated. People are leaning away from the phone. They're going more into social selling, like you said, the DMs, getting that instant conversation going on a DM on Instagram or TikTok off of a piece of content. Or they're doing email, leaning very heavy into just cranking out emails, hoping people will respond to them. And they may never talk to that prospect. And it's crazy to me, because I thrive on the phone. And this could just be a generational thing. A lot of people say that is this new class of work is moving into, they don't like the phones. You and I, we grew up with having to call our friends physically through a phone that was attached to the wall. We still pick up phones like this, where everybody else is doing it like this, right? I'm doing my fingers, right? Like a phone, versus them holding it with their hand. So that's where it kind of is changing. But I do believe we need to empower these folks to talk to one another, still pick up the phone. That second point is it's a human connection. They get to hear your tone, your delivery. Email and writing is so contextual, and it's such a mess. If it's misread, you try to do a joke and it doesn't land well in the email, things like that. It can get real sloppy. We're on the phone, or me and you doing this right now, we could talk it out. I could be like, well, hold on, I hear where you're going with it, but let me work it out with you, or let me help you. There's time to seek to understand and be understood in that time. And 3, I think, it's, I've never seen somebody close the deal without picking up the phone. I just haven't. I've been in business in sales for 16 years, since 2007. And I've never closed a deal, unless it's like a product where you can bang it out. Okay. They go on the website, they buy, they don't have to deal. But at the end of the day, I've never really seen somebody work a deal cycle and not have to leverage the phone in some capacity to start the convo, re-engage the person. And so that's all calling, right?
Especially on enterprise level, right? Because there you need to pick up the phone, you need to speak to people.
You have to.
Another underrated feature or benefit of cold calling is you get so relaxed talking to people. Like I talk to strangers every day. There is because it can be nerve-wracking at the start, but the more you do it, it's just like, hey, we're having a conversation. We're talking about football. We're talking about, once you find their touch points and stuff, then it becomes second nature. So even if sales is not an avenue that you want to go down for the rest of your life, I think it's a very good skill set to have, because people are talking to others less and less. So, hey, if everyone is moving in this direction, I mean, the benefit of me moving the other way could be exponential.
Yep. When everybody's going left, go right, right? That's why I advocate for those that still want to lean into the phone, because it's a quiet market now versus a couple of years ago when trying to get on the phone was kind of annoying, right? People were annoyed, like it's the 18th call of the day. I was a VP of sales for 5 months with a SDR bootcamp company. And in that 5 months, I got 3 or 4 cold calls in the entire 5 months in that role versus 50 to 60, 70 emails or many LinkedIn DMs. But I had about 5 SDRs actually cold call me, and I just thought it was crazy. I was like, that is wild. And I didn't get calls often. I wasn't missing calls. And the other thing is people didn't leave voicemails.
Yeah.
You know, but like, I think it's a rite of passage for you. It teaches you life skills, like you said. I think there's purpose in ripping that Band-Aid. It teaches you such a life skill that as you can get comfortable talking to strangers and get your conversation skills, it's life skills.
Yeah.
Me and you have never spoken before, but this feels so natural. We're able to conversate. You know, there's no filling the space, and you know, and it just helps in life to be a good communicator.
Let's talk about that. Let's deep dive into that, because when I get a cold call, when I switch off, it's when I can feel them reading off a script. They go, "Hi, sir, how are you?" "I'm fine, thank you for asking. I'm calling you from," you know, that whole thing. And I'm like, what are you doing? No one speaks like that. It's like so I want to talk to you about tools that you can use while cold calling, and specifically focused on cadence. What is cadence and how important it is to understand someone's cadence and match it, and like why you need to do that. Because it's a science, it's an art.
It is, you know, and that's why, you know, the big old debate is science, is sales science or an art? And I truly believe, you know, it is a science at its fundamental level, but once you master the science and the data and the analytical side of it, you can tap into the creative arts of it, right? And that's where you can start doing a little bit creativity in your outreach and switching up your script once you can figure out the science behind it and your foundation, right? And so in your arsenal as a cold caller, for those listening and maybe not know, right, we're sitting at home in our office space and we're just picking up a phone, and that's the only tool we have is that phone, that person picking up, and our tone and delivery. And it rings so true that it's not what you say, it's how you say it. You know, when you position the way you phrase a question, you know, "Hey, how much do you weigh?" That can be offensive to somebody. But if I say, "Hey, out of curiosity, how much do you weigh?" You roll right off your tongue, right? You're like, "Oh," and you're like, "Damn, did I just tell Tom that?" Like, I felt that come right out. But it's because of the way I framed it and the way that I toned it. You want to match the cadence of the person on the call. This takes practice. Again, rite of passage. It's just like in baseball. You just got to keep hitting the bat and just keep putting in the reps, putting in the practice, because you don't just pick up matching somebody's tone and cadence on your first cold call. Like you mentioned, I ate crap for 2 years in my first journey being a cold caller. I mean, I succeeded, I booked my meetings, but I didn't really catch my bearings for a while, right? I still had those butterflies. I still have those mess ups. I'd still get riled up and attached to phone calls and outcomes. And if it didn't work my way, right, I got frustrated. But as you keep putting in the reps, you start picking up on those cues. When person answers the phone, you can kind of take 2 seconds to hear around them. You can understand the energy they're bringing into the call, that you're not going too high, you're not going too low. You're just sitting right there in that space with them and having a genuine, you know, you and I'm a little bit higher, you're a little bit lower. So I just want to bring that down. And now I'm just going to sit with you, right? And we're just going to hang in this little bubble here, and I'm going to deliver things. My biggest recommendation for folks making cold call is kind of come with an unsure tone on pretty much anything versus a more, depends on your ideal customer profile, the people you're calling. But for most, try to come in unsure. Like I said, like out of curiosity, you know, how much do you weigh? Right? It's unsure. Or I'm like, "Hey, does it, you know, make sense? Or do you think it'd be a cool idea for us to meet next week and maybe chat more about this?" Versus, "Hey, let's chat." You know, you gotta, but in some calls I do say, and I need to lead the person to water, and I go, "Hey, let's set that call up for Thursday. Does, 2 o'clock work for you?" And you got to be more direct. But that's where you pick up on those cadences, you pick up on those tones, you kind of pick up on a style. And that's where I think people lack in the training and the tools in empowering reps to work on their personal skills. It's not really catered in sales training. It's not really catered in any ongoing development once somebody gets into the sales role. We're focused on these other skills that are, closing the deal, forecasting, objection handling, like all these things where we miss the fundamentals of people are people. We need to figure out how to understand picking up those cues, learning the personality. And so I'm going to do a small plug. It's a tool called humantics.ai. And it's like Crystal Knows, but on steroids. And it's an extension on Chrome. It literally reads over their LinkedIn. It's helped me tremendously in the last few months, is where I could pull your profile up. I pull up Humantics, I click the button, and it literally gives me your personality style. It'll break down the entire, like, how do you want to be spoken to? What is your disc profile? What is your ocean profile? What are all these things for me to be able to speak to you in your kind of buyer's language, right? Like, what gets Rocco super hyped, right? How does he want to be spoken to? What are some, because everybody has these personality traits. That's and so when you can lean into them, like for you, it says that they prefer to analyze every situation thoroughly. While they don't hesitate to ask questions, they are generally risk adverse and tend to be late adopters. They are generally not very friendly and prefer to stay to the point. And so if I was like negotiating with you, it tells me how to qualify you. So do this with building a connection with him, right? Share as much information as possible regarding your product, emphasize more on facts and measurable benefits, keep some extra margin in hand as they really like to negotiate the pricing. Right? And so it breaks down all these things.
That's pretty spot on. Pretty spot on.
And it says, and this is what don't to do with Rocco. Avoid rushing them, be polite and patient. Don't try to be too friendly or informal with them. Don't overhype the product or pitch. Keep it measured. And it's scary. Crazy. Yeah. And so that way, when I cold call you, or I'm getting ready to craft that message with you, I'm like, cool, Rocco is straight to the point. I don't need small talk. I don't need to be personalizing this email with him because he's just going to delete me and put me in his spam. I really need to just come with him talking about the facts, the measurable benefits of working with, the SD lab, what we're going to do. And don't overhype it. Be real with Rocco to a point where it's super simple, super basic, and just be like, Rocco, this is what we're doing. And you're good, right? And you move at a pretty reasonable pace, it says, right? And you'll make, if you have the necessary information. But I think we need to train there. We need to train in learning people, learning their buyer language and not speaking to them all in a blanket tone of like, everybody thinks this. Because imagine if you sent out 100 emails directed just to Rocco, but you had thousands of people in there. Not everybody's going to like Rocco's message. Rocco's going to like it. Sure. Rocco's going to be like, you got me on the hook. Like, I'm taking a meeting. But maybe 900 of the others are like, dude, don't ever, like, whoa, you came in way too, like, I need a little bit of fluff in there, or I need a little bit of some more. And so you learn how to get really drilled in on people.
But that's a great tool. I'm definitely going to look it out. Tom, thank you so much for joining me today. Before I let you go, I want to ask you about those 2 years. You said that you really struggled through it. And I think for anyone starting out and cold calling someone, the worst part is rejection, because you get it a lot. You get people cursing at you. You get people angry and venting because, remember, and you might not recognize quickly enough that it's an inopportune time, or just they're in a bad mood or whatever. Because later on, I sort of learned how to turn those negative conversations into a positive by throwing something out there and saying, like, if there's something in common that's going around in South Africa, we're struggling with electricity, for example, and then I'll just out of the blue talk about load shedding, right? And say, oh, this power utility company, whatever. And they'll go, yeah, and then you sort of segue into that. And you say, like, hey, I don't want to waste your time, but would you mind if I give you a call at a later stage? Like, yeah. And then you phone next week, totally different person. But like, how did you deal with rejection? Because I didn't have someone that could help me with that. I took it pretty bad for a while there at the start.
I did too. Like my first, like I said, is I got heated. I got really invested. So I have this, trait of myself where I only give 110% to everything. I don't know anything else. I don't know how to come be mediocre or just come sit in this sweet spot. It's all or nothing. And so when I was cold calling and I was out there, when I hit that rejection or those rough patches, it took me out, right? I got frustrated. I got really worked up because I was just so invested in succeeding or helping and helping these folks. I thought I was doing my job the right way. And so when they were like, "Oh, this isn't good for me right now," no time, just frustrated me. Yeah. And so one of the most practical things I did was I stopped when those calls happened, I would just keep going, keep making the next dial and keep going. And I would take that baggage all into the rest of the day and the calls. So one thing that really started helping me was when I did get into that rejection or that first call, or maybe that one that really hit me hard, I took a 15-minute walk and I left. Right. And I just remembered like we got to think big picture versus this now moment. And I think that's where it comes from, is we're in the now, we're stressed out. And so when I go take that walk, I was able to be like, oh yeah, we're on a big giant rock spinning in the middle of the universe. Like, okay, like it's okay, right? I'm not going to lose my job. Like I was always thinking the worst stuff. I was always stressed. And the other thing is I just started getting comfortable with embracing the water, like in the cold call. Because again, I was very structured, I thought it was A to B destination. This is just what happened. And so when it didn't, I was like, oh, you trained me that if I did this stuff, it was supposed to go from cold to meeting booked. And this is not, I can't catch it. What am I doing? When my peers were doing the same thing and it was working for them, or they were booking and I just couldn't get it. I had to start learning the skills to kind of improv. I've been trying to teach SDRs and getting into this topic of, I think a skill is like doing improv, because that's what cold calling is. People use scripts, they do all this stuff, but I had to start getting to the point where I had to get comfortable with not expecting the black and white. That was my big moment, is it doesn't have to be black and white. Enjoy the conversation, focus on just talking, uncovering things, and just leave the account better than you found it, right? Whatever that may be, get a piece of information, verify something, set micro goals along that of like where, hey, their rejection happened. Great. I tested out my tone on that call. I'm going to listen back to that later today and put a note here. And I want to see how I delivered that. And I think it was accountability, taking on that accountability of that rejection, not personal, not personal acceptance of like, I did personal, but just accountability. Okay, maybe my pitch wasn't right. Maybe let's go back to the drawing board. Let me go see what happened in that call and start learning from it. Yeah. Versus what some SDRs do, they just keep ripping and they just keep moving along and expecting change. Yeah. You have to take some accountability and control what you can control. And when I started getting that mindset of like, man, I'm doing my best, I'm doing the script, I'm doing what I got to do. All this other stuff, it's just nuances. It's like a river. It's going to pop over here. Clicks. Yeah. And like, just let it roll, man. Just like have a conversation because I was going into it too forced. I was thinking the call do you ever call your friend and expect it to go like, this is the convo? No, you call and just have a conversation. And so when you can break from that of stop focusing on this big goal of booking a meeting, and that is success in cold calling. If you book a meeting, it's not, that's the main goal, but there's so many other micro goals along that. Focus on those and the rest will come.
I've been out of the game for a while, but it's something that I'm just thinking about now. It's like stand-up comedy. When people get up stage, you talk about improv, they go up and they bomb. But one thing they always say when they go on the road, reps do it over and over. But one thing they say really helps is listening to other comedians do their sets. And so in the cold calling game, is it something that you guys do now? Do you have people that you listen to and say to guys, hey, listen to this guy, listen to how he speaks, or something like that?
This is a great segue to another product plug. And we were talking about this backstage.
Not planned. That was not planned.
Not planned. At all. This is all cold, y'all.
That was cold. Yeah, that was not planned.
That was good. That was good. To the basis of the question, yes, people need to review the game tape. Yes, you need to be listening to those on your team that are doing the right behaviors or that are a little bit more seasoned, kind of understand their flow, work on that, and it'll speed up your own path exponentially, right? Steph Curry, some of the greats in the sports world, they watch their game tape. They are filmed. Tom Brady wasn't
Tom Brady, I was about to say, No.
Tom Brady wasn't just showing up every day, just going out there playing football and expecting the same outcome every time. That man lived and breathed his review game tape and watching his opponents. Not only his own tape, but he was studying his competitors. He was studying his teammates, his styles. Oh, Patrick Mahomes is throwing from the side now. Let me try that. I'm going to go practice that. I'm going to try to do that in my thing. Tries it a few times. Nope, not for me. Doesn't work for me. I can't do that. I'm going to stick to my process. Or, hey, I leveled up. I got a new skill in the arsenal. LeBron James starting to shoot threes. Why? Because he's studying the greats like Curry and Clay. And now he's added it to his arsenal where, hey, I can hit threes in the right moments. The right moments, right?
Yeah.
But Wingman is a great tool where it jumps on your calls, Zooms, Google Meets, right? It'll log all your calls that you do. And you can review the game tapes. It gives you a transcript. It gives you battle cards that come up in the middle of the call. So if you were to say one of the trigger words like a competitor or budget, these cards would come up and they would be like bullet points of what like the best practices are on the team when this thing comes up. Or you can bookmark those moments and go back to the call and listen to it. And then you can take that library and let's say, no budget as an objection. All the SDRs and all the AEs can go into that library, look at objections, and look at other game tapes, look at other recordings, see the ones that won that overcame that objection and got the meeting, or the ones that slipped and, fell short, right? And you study that. And people don't do that enough. Cold calling and sales is just like an athlete. It really, truly is. It's crazy, the similarities in the world. It's a team sport, but it's individual stats. It's growth and career progression. You're moving teams. It's all of it, right? And so review your game tape, put into practice, hit the reps, because that's what's going to matter most and get you to evolve, right? Like Tom Brady wasn't just great out the gates. That man put in work. LeBron's put in work. These guys are at the gym before everybody else is there. They stay after everybody else. They're mastering their craft. And that's what it takes to be great in sales, is make it a career, not a job, right? Too many go into it where it's just like other athletes where, I make my money and I come in, I do my job and I go home, and they want to be like Tom Brady or they want the accolades like this, but they're not willing to put into work. And it's like, keep that mind and body and keep it all healthy and, master your craft.
And earlier in the season, we talked about how lucrative it is to get into SaaS. And I mean, I think if you get into this and you nail it, right, and you just stick through it, it could be well worth it. Tom, thank you so much for joining me today. If the listeners want to go and connect with you and learn more about SD, where can they do that?
My favorite place is LinkedIn right now. Hit me there. I am all over there. I love it. I'm also on Twitter. I'm having a good time on Twitter. But yeah, LinkedIn's the number one spot. Drop me a DM, come join my content. Let me see you. Give me, some love there. Have a conversation. That's how we met, right? Just commenting back and forth. Hanging out with one another in the community. But yeah, that's where to find me. And learn more.
But I learned from you, right? So it's just, it's like you putting value out there and I like this, because so much of what you said, I can use for discovery as well. Maybe not trying, but I'm trying to discover other people. Wingman, I'm definitely going to check it out. Thank you so much for joining me. To our listeners, peace, love, and prosperity. We'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.